In case you missed it, last week Taylor Swift released some new music, kind of dropped a surprise on everybody, and as I was watching her music video, I could not help but think that this was a perfect way to describe a writing device that's often really hard to explain. It's something that's completely misunderstood in the writing community, and so I wanted to share that with you so you can gain a little more insight into how to use these two very important writing tools. I'm Whitney Ryan, and in this video, I'm going to help you understand the difference between voice and tone. These are two completely connected but very different devices, and it's often really hard in the copywriting community and I think the writing community at large to clearly explain the difference between these two because there's so much overlap. According to thewritingcollective.com, voice and tone are how you sound when you speak or write. Makes sense, but doesn't really help you understand the difference, right? So let's go back to Taylor Swift. Now, no matter what album Taylor's promoting, she is the same person. I have liked her since she was like a 16-year-old singing country music, and I still like her now. And despite everything, she's switched genres. Her life has gotten different. Her music's gotten really different. She as a person is the same underneath. And even though the style of her songs might change, the sort of things she writes about, I don't know, she's still the same person underneath. See, it's even hard for me to explain the difference. But so Taylor is always the same person, the same artist, quite literally the same voice underneath all of that music. Whereas her different albums, she rather masterfully calls these eras instead of albums because every single one has a completely different feel. So it will go from, curls and rhinestones all over everything to her last album was really dark and gritty, and the symbol of it was a snake, and she was just like bad Taylor and had taken a turn. And now this latest album could not be more different. The music video starts with a snake slithering down the road, and then it explodes into pink and purple butterflies. And the latest song, it's just everything's covered in pastels. It's very uplifting. It's all about self-love. So it's a signal to us that this new era is going to be totally different than the one before. And so the eras and kind of the look and feel of each album is more like tone. It's more like your voice is your personality. So the person that's underneath, your voice is always going to be the same, whereas your tone is your mood, kind of your temporary state. What do you feel like today? That's your tone. So I can one morning be really cranky and rude and short, and the next day I can be really bubbly and excited and, kind. I'm going to be the same person underneath all of that, but it's just going to be expressed in different ways. So that's kind of the difference between voice and tone. And I hope that the Taylor example helps clarify that a little bit, but I also want to put some edges on this when it comes to writing because just understanding it isn't necessarily going to help you. So two tools, two ways that you can work on making your voice and tone consistent and interesting. The first is to style up your text. So the best way I know to express tone is to use things like all caps if you're angry or excited, bold, italics, asterisks, things like that to really make your words come alive, help people hear what you're saying, although they're just reading it. So that's just a fantastic way, whatever you're writing, it just makes, it adds a lot of feeling to your words. It helps people to hear you. So I always recommend that you style up your text before posting it, but pay special attention if you want to communicate a certain tone. If you want it to be softer, if you want it to be louder and more intense, if you want it to be really excited or whether you want it to be subdued. Just think about how you can use styling to help communicate that tone in your writing. And the second way that I like to keep voice consistent, no matter what tone you're using, is to use a word bank. So this is something I started doing in my client work when I had to write as somebody else, because I don't want that writing to sound like me, I want it to sound like them. So one of the ways I do that is by writing down the words and phrases that they use naturally in conversation. So for example, one of my clients often uses the phrase "in actual fact." I might say something like, "when really, blah, blah, blah," or "the truth, blah, blah, blah." He says, "in actual fact, blah, blah, blah." So that's just an example, but when I am working on his copy, specifically in the editing stages, I go through and wherever it would make sense to use that phrase, I will pop it in. You can do the same thing with words. So for myself, I use the word "totally" all the time. I use wonky, bonkers. I call people bud. So when I'm editing my own work, I will make sure to inject those phrases throughout the copy, so that even if I'm annoyed in, ranting in one email, or whether I'm being really genuine and heartfelt and talking about something that's really, really important to me, you're gonna see the same words and the same phrases. So even though my tone might change, the voice underneath is still gonna feel familiar and is still gonna feel like Whitney. So those are the two tools that I use when I want to play with voice and tone. So use your styling. That is your best way to communicate tone and to show a lot of emotion in your copy. And use a word bank so that you can keep your voice super consistent and super strong no matter what tone you're using. So now I'd love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments how you think of voice and tone. It's such a hard thing to clearly distinguish one from the other. So let me know how you look at the two, and if you have any other tools to help you play with these in your writing. And let me know what you think of the new Taylor Swift direction. I watch her like a hawk with any and all things marketing because she's just so fabulous at it, and I'm really curious to see where she's gonna go with this new vibe and this new style, this new tone of her new album. So let me know if you're gonna be watching too. All right, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll see you soon.